Let's go out to Washington, D.C. and talk to Lee. What's up, Lee?
Hi, Dr. John. How are you?
We're doing great. How about you?
I'm doing great. Thank you for taking my call.
You got it. What's up?
Okay. So about a week and a half ago, my really good longtime friend lost her sibling tragically in a car accident, and they were really close. Yeah. Also in recent years, another immediate family member of hers, one of her parents, unexpectedly passed away. So her family has kind of been drugged through like all the levels of hell that no one should have to go through just in the past couple of years. Yeah. So last week was the siblings' visitation and funeral. At the funeral, I saw a lot of old friends who we spent a lot of our 20s with, doing the usual 20-something things. And so we gathered in a group in the back of the visitation room and proceeded to talk, laugh, and carry on about times in our 20s, people's new kids, divorces, work, all the topics that you would catch up on with someone like more at a bar or out to lunch. And I didn't realize until probably 10 minutes in that we were all receiving stares from people in the room. It was kind of like we had totally forgotten where we were and that there wasn't an open casket in the front of the room, and our friend and her family weren't heavily grieving.
Lee, you're the worst. You're the worst friend ever. I'm totally kidding. Totally kidding.
Well, a child lost its parent, and we were kind of carrying on really loudly, obviously not on purpose. But that night I woke up in the middle of the night just feeling super sick to my stomach that I may have actually really hurt my friend and her family. Mm-hmm. My friend's like the most genuine and kind person I've ever met in my life. And in 15 years, she's never said a bad word about anybody.
Have you called her?
Well, that's my question. So the next day at the funeral, no one mentioned anything about it. Sure. But of course, my question for you is do I go and apologize to her? Do I even say anything about it?
I've been you. I've done that. Exactly what you're talking about. And for me, it's twofold. Number one, that's how I handle grief, is I laugh. Or I handle that discomfort, okay? And it's probably just hanging out with first responders too long, but it's a very blue, dark black sense of humor. The second thing is I have a picture in my head, and I have forever, of my funeral. I want everybody laughing their heads off. I even wrote out what I want to happen at my funeral with a couple of friends having to sing certain karaoke songs just so everyone would laugh. My wife said, I'm not doing any of that stuff. I'm not doing chores for you when you're dead. But like that's my picture. And I also have realized over time that's not everybody else's picture. Right? And so I've been you. What I would do in your situation is, are you all in the same town?
Yes.
Okay. I would just say, hey, can I take you to coffee? And it's not about absolving yourself. You don't want her and her grief to have to take care of you right now. But I do think it's a good moment to check in on her. Usually after the funeral, after someone loses, especially a child or a sibling, a close sibling, it's that 30 days. Sometimes I'll put a star on my calendar, a week out, and then 30 days out. And then maybe again 6 months out. Because that's when things get real quiet. And you reaching out a week after, 2 weeks after, and saying, hey, can we go get coffee? And you just using that time, how are you? And if it comes up naturally, say, hey, we saw a bunch of old friends. We were being so obnoxious, and I'm so sorry. And that will give her an opportunity to say, yeah, I heard that. You're the worst. Or she'll say, I was so in my black hole that I didn't even realize it. I'm glad y'all got to catch up. Which is, I think, about 95% of people would say the latter.
Okay. And I'm glad you mentioned, reaching out. And that was kind of my next question is, we had plans to go and do these really fun things, for fall and for winter. Do I still invite her out to do? Okay.
Absolutely. Yes.
My mom said that she's never going to be the same after this, so I'm kind of
she's an adult and she gets to
decide.
She's an adult and she gets to decide what she does next.
Okay.
What we don't want to do is artificially create loneliness in her life as she's struggling for the words to say, the things that she even needs, what she wants. We don't want to just quote unquote give her space, and all of a sudden her whole network shuts off thinking they're helping out. I would give her an opportunity to say, I'm not ready for that right now.
Okay.
And you need to just know every time you reach out and say, hey, I think it all starts with a cup of coffee, or just go grab a drink and just hang out. But I think every time you invite her on that weekend trip, every time you invite her to that Airbnb, every time you invite her to that concert, if she says no, just know that has nothing to do with you. She's just grieving and struggling. And some days in her grief will be up days, and some days she's not going to want to get out from under the covers, and that's cool. And maybe you skip the weekend retreat and say, hey, if I brought over a bunch of cheeseburgers and some nachos, you just want to watch Ted Lasso reruns? And she might be like, yes. And she might say, I just need some time by myself.
Okay.
You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, that makes sense.
And I'll tell you, I tell everybody this, but so often we have no roadmap for sitting with people who are hurting because of loss or because of cancer or because of whatever, that we all end up leaning on the hurting person to make us feel better because we don't know what to do with our discomfort. And I would tell you just to be real cognizant of not using her and her going out with you, her saying it's okay that y'all were causing a scene in the back of the room. Like, it's not her job to prop you all up right now. It's vice versa. It's her friend's job to come hold her arms up in the desert because she can't breathe. See the difference?
I do. And that's why I asked the question, because again, in my mind, it's like, I hope I didn't cause her any more pain than what she's already going through.
You probably didn't. You probably didn't.
Okay.
You probably didn't. I'd be willing to bet you didn't. You might have bothered her aunt so-and-so or whatever, but she doesn't get a vote. And maybe you did. Maybe she's going to be really upset with you, and if she is, so be it. I mean, at that point, what do you say? You say, like, I'm really sorry.
Right.
Like, I got uncomfortable and I saw some old friends and it was easy to distract myself. I just didn't handle it right. I'm sorry. I mean, what else are you going to say, right?
Well, that's the truth.
Yeah, I was super uncool and I'm sorry.
Okay.
If it were my friends and I lost one of my siblings and a bunch of my friends showed up and they were in the back laughing, I would be grateful for that. So everybody's going to respond differently. I think the thing to not do is avoid your friend. I think it's to head directly into that discomfort and just put it all out on the table. But only after you've spent some time saying, hey, how are you? The week after the funeral, the month after the funeral, the 6 months after the funeral, after all of the emails and cards stop and all of the condolences stop and the bills get paid and the insurance stuff comes through. After all that, it gets really, really quiet. Real quiet. And that's when the real friends show up. Not the hangers-on and the high-fivers and the peripheral friends who legitimately feel bad that you lost a child or that you're sick or that, that your sibling passed away. They're really sad, but they move on. Your ride or dies, those you're really close to, it affects y'all. Y'all's life is different now too. And so, like I say, I will put a star in my calendar for a week out, sometimes a month out, sometimes 6 months out, and just make sure I reach out because things get real quiet. Whew. So reach out. Tell you want to take her to coffee. And if she says, I don't want to go with you, and you reach out in another week, I don't want to go with you, reach out another week, I don't want to go with you, then you could say, hey, are we cool? Are we cool? And then maybe she'll say, no, you're a jerk. You were laughing at my sibling's funeral. And you can say, I'm sorry. I didn't handle that right. I was weirded out and I was uncool. I saw some old friends. I was uncool. And then she gets to heal on her own. But I don't think that's going to be the case. She's lucky to have you, Lee. She's lucky to have you. Reach out.